Welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to imagine walking down the produce aisle, completely on autopilot.
Oh, yeah. Like we all do every single week.
Right. You pass the green broccoli, the red apples, those deep purple eggplants,
Yeah.
and you glance over at the carrots, expecting that familiar, uniform blaze of bright orange.
It's the baseline standard.
Exactly.
Mm.
But what if you look down, and sitting right there in the open, staring back at you, is a carrot that is undeniably, vibrantly neon yellow?
I mean, that would completely stop you on your tracks.
It really would. And today, our mission for you, our fellow learner, is to take that totally mundane activity, a quick grocery run, and show you how a single, unexpected visual anomaly can completely upend our baseline assumptions about what is, natural.
And the source for this is so great. We are pulling from this brief, brilliant little entry published on May 3rd, 2026.
Yeah, by a writer named Ang.
Right. And the post has this deceptively quiet title, Notes on Dieting Part 112.
Which sounds like a log of someone counting calories, right?
Yeah, it implies this long, maybe tedious journey of everyday life. But hidden inside that routine documentation is an observation that just dismantles this deeply ingrained illusion we all carry around.
Every single time we step into a supermarket.
Exactly. Because Aang wasn't looking to, deconstruct modern agricultural history. They were literally just shopping for vegetables. They looked down, saw that bright yellow carrot, and experienced a severe disruption of expectations.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because encountering a yellow carrot isn't like encountering some weird, exotic fruit you've never seen before.
No, not at all.
You know what a carrot is. You know its shape, its texture, its context, right there in the produce bin. The cognitive disruption comes entirely from the color.
Yeah, and Aang even felt compelled to take a picture of it and put it in the blog post.
Which tells you everything you need to know about the modern psyche.
Yeah.
We see a yellow carrot and immediately think, I need photographic evidence of this.
What's fascinating here is how that reaction really exposes the underlying mechanics of our visual expectations.
How so?
Well, when you walk into a highly curated environment, like a grocery store, you aren't actually analyzing your surroundings in real time.
Right, you're not scrutinizing every single item.
No, you're operating almost entirely on heuristics. Mental shortcuts designed to save cognitive energy. So your brain has a specific encoded file labeled carrot.
And the main data point in that file is orange.
Exactly. The primary non-negotiable data point is the color orange. So when Aang's visual field processed the physical geometry of a carrot, but the incoming color data registered as vibrant yellow.
The brain just throws a 404 error.
Yes, it created immediate cognitive friction. The autopilot disengaged because the environmental data just failed to match the internal predictive model.
How often do you walk through the produce section on autopilot, assuming everything you see is exactly how nature intended it?
I mean, I do it constantly.
Same here. It's a literal glitch in the matrix of the grocery store. The matrix being our brain's predictive coding.
That's a great way to put it.
Because the supermarket is designed to be the ultimate low-friction environment, right? Every apple is waxed to a specific shine. The mist sprays over the leafy greens on a timer to signal freshness.
It is a space engineered to prevent you from asking questions.
Yes. So when you encounter a 404 error in the vegetable bin, you basically have two choices.
Yeah.
You can either ignore the glitch, grab the familiar orange carrots, and go make your salad.
Sure.
Or you can do what Aang did and pull at the thread to see what unspools.
And pulling that thread leads directly to the historical reality that caused the glitch in the first place.
Which is just wild.
It really is, because when Aang sat down to research and draft this entry, they uncovered that the vibrant yellow carrot wasn't a freak mutation, and it wasn't some modern lab experiment.
That was the original code.
Yes. Carrots historically were predominantly purple and yellow.
That still messes with my head.
I know, right? The bright orange carrot that dominates every grocery store, every lunchbox, and farm across the globe, it is not the default setting of nature.
Wait. Let me push back for a second.
Sure.
Because humans have been genetically modifying crops for millennia, right?
True.
Like you look at modern corn versus ancient teosinte. Teosinte is basically an inedible grass.
Right.
And we engineered it into these massive, sweet yellow cobs over thousands of years.
Yeah, or how we turn wild mustard weed into broccoli and kale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is the orange carrot really a unique, quote-unquote, invention? Or is this just standard agricultural evolution that feels weird to us simply because the color shift is so stark?
That is a really crucial distinction to make. You are entirely correct that agriculture is, by definition, the artificial modification of nature.
Right.
The difference with the carrot and what makes the Dutch intervention function so much like a deliberate invention is the sheer scale and efficiency of the visual rebranding.
Visual rebranding. I like that.
Because with corn or broccoli, we were breeding for caloric density and edibility, taking something marginal and making it sustain populations.
Thinking so we don't starve.
Right. But the Dutch growers in the 17th century, they took a crop that was already perfectly edible. It was already deeply integrated into the global diet in its purple and yellow forms.
And they systematically bred it for a specific aesthetic consistency.
Exactly. They standardized a biological organism with the exact same precision a modern corporation uses to standardize a brand logo.
Wait, so the orange vegetable we give to kids as the ultimate natural snack is basically a 17th century Dutch invention.
It really is. Normal is often just a highly successful historical rebranding effort that we've collectively forgotten about.
And they did it so thoroughly that they induced global amnesia. That is the part that just stops me in my tracks.
It's incredible.
Because it's one thing to invent a new variation of a vegetable. It is an entirely different level of dominance to replace the original so completely that centuries later, a writer in 2026 finds the original natural color to be peculiar.
Yeah, completely alien.
It would be like finding out water was originally neon green, but someone in the 1600s thought clear looked more refreshing, so they changed it, and we all just forgot neon green water ever existed.
That's a hilarious comparison, but it's totally accurate. The erasure of the purple and yellow carrot from collective memory highlights the overwhelming success of that agricultural design project.
It really does.
But, a visual rebrand, no matter how striking, rarely secures a global monopoly purely on aesthetics.
Right. Looking pretty isn't enough.
Exactly. To completely wipe out the original variations and dominate the global food supply across different continents and climates, there had to be an underlying biological payoff.
The new code couldn't just look different. It had to execute better.
Precisely. Which perfectly bridges the gap to how Ang chose to investigate this.
Yeah, because knowing the Dutch painted the carrot orange is like a great piece of historical trivia, but aesthetics alone don't conquer the world.
Ang wanted to know the mechanics of the victory.
And they didn't just read an encyclopedia entry. They used a really modern tool to parse this centuries-old shift. Ang tasked an artificial intelligence to generate a comprehensive comparison table.
Pitting the original yellow and purple varieties directly against the Dutch orange variety.
Yes.
Which is just a brilliant methodological choice, because the application of an AI model to compare historical crop data, it removes all the romanticism of the history.
Right, it strips the vegetables down to their raw biological data sets.
Yeah. The AI analyzed the nutritional profiles, the mineral content, the hardiness, and the sensory characteristics of both the indigenous varieties and the engineered orange variant.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the AI comparison didn't just return like a color hex code difference.
Oh, no. It revealed a fundamental shift in the physical makeup
and the sensory experience of the carrot. Beyond just the specific nutrient balances, the defining characteristic that separated the Dutch orange carrot from its ancestors was profound.
Yeah.
The orange carrot is significantly sweeter and significantly juicier.
That is the biological payload right there. The Dutch growers didn't merely alter the pigment. They altered the sucrose levels and the water retention of the root.
It's wild. The orange carrot is essentially the pop music of the vegetable world.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. The purple and yellow carrots are the indie originals. They have deep roots. They have a complex, earthy, maybe slightly bitter flavor profile that appeals to a specific palate.
Sure.
But then the Dutch growers step in, acting like 17th century record executives. They look at this indie vegetable and they say, we can make this a global hit, but we need to smooth out the edges.
Make it more radio-friendly.
Exactly. So they selectively breed it to be sweeter. They breed it to be juicier. They engineer a broadly appealing, universally consumable product.
And it works.
It totally works. Just like a massive, undeniable pop anthem, it completely overtakes the indie originals on the global charts. It's playing on every radio station. Or, in this case, sitting in every produce bin in the world.
The pop music analogy is structurally perfect because it highlights the role of the consumer in driving the change.
How so?
Well, the Dutch growers were responding to and ultimately exploiting baseline human biology. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, the human brain is hardwired to seek out two things in the wild.
Oh.
First, Sweetness, which acts as a reliable signal for caloric density and safe, non-toxic energy.
Makes sense.
And second, juiciness, which signals immediate hydration and cellular freshness. By breeding for sugar and water, the growers essentially hacked ancient human desire.
They bypassed our rational brain and went straight for the primal circuitry.
Precisely. They iterated on the crop generation after generation until it hit the exact sensory notes that the human brain evolved to crave.
Wow.
So the bright orange color wasn't just an aesthetic quirk, it became the visual packaging that carried this highly engineered, incredibly desirable payload of sucrose and hydration.
So the visual cue of the color orange became neurologically intertwined with the biological reward of the sugar.
Yes.
The flashy album cover for the pop star.
Exactly. And Eng takes this realization about sweetness and juiciness from the AI data and makes a brilliant conceptual leap.
We move entirely past the physical traits of the vegetable itself.
Right, and step directly into the immense power of human psychology. Eng concludes that this heightened sweetness is the functional reason the orange color became dominant.
But they follow that up with a sentence that completely reframes how we think about eating.
Yeah, what was the quote?
Eng writes, "You should never underestimate how much appearance and color over the taste influence our choices as consumers. We visually taste the foods way before we even take a bite."
Visually tasting the food. It is such a striking phrase because it accurately describes the neuroscience of anticipation.
Right.
When you are standing in that produce aisle looking at a bright orange carrot, your brain does not wait for the physical act of chewing to begin processing the experience.
It's already jumping ahead.
Yeah. The visual cortex identifies the specific hue of orange, references that internal predictive model we discussed earlier, and instantly simulates the sensory experience. Your brain anticipates the crunch, the burst of hydration, and the hit of glucose.
So what does this all mean? For you listening right now, it forces you to pause and deeply examine your own daily habits.
Oh, absolutely.
When you reach for that perfectly uniform, bright orange vegetable, are you making a conscious, rational choice based on nutritional superiority? Or are you simply fulfilling a predictive loop?
That's the real question.
Are you choosing the item because it actually tastes better, or because it perfectly matches your deeply ingrained, culturally inherited idea of what a healthy vegetable is supposed to look like?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Eng is demonstrating how the abstract concept of consumer psychology literally shapes the physical, biological reality of the planet.
It's kind of terrifying when you put it like that.
It is. Our demand for a specific aesthetic and sensory experience dictates what gets planted in the soil. When the 17th century consumer visually tasted the new orange carrot, their brain received a predictive microdose of dopamine based on the promise of sugar.
And when they looked at the traditional yellow or purple carrot,
The visual cue did not trigger that same powerful anticipatory reward.
and the economic results of that neurological reaction are totally ruthless. The market doesn't hold on to nostalgia.
Not at all.
If the consumer's brain lights up for the orange pop star and feels nothing for the purple indie original, the agricultural system stops planting the original.
We literally bred the biological diversity out of the species because we couldn't stop eating with our eyes.
We sacrifice the deep, earthy complexity of the yellow and purple carrots for the reliable, dopamine-triggering hit of orange packaged sugar.
And you know, the irony of this entire revelation being housed in a blog post titled Notes on Dieting cannot be overstated.
Oh man, yeah, that is so true.
Because dieting is fundamentally an attempt by the modern human to exert rational control over their biology. It is the practice of overriding primal cravings to make disciplined choices about fuel and longevity.
We go to the grocery store, we skip the processed snack aisle, and we head to the produce section because we view those vegetables as pure, unadulterated nature.
We think we're making the disciplined, ascetic choice. We're eating our vegetables.
But exactly the opposite is true. Eng's discovery reveals that the very instruments of our modern diets, the pristine, bright orange carrots we view as the ultimate symbol of natural health, are themselves the product of centuries of humans yielding entirely to their baseline, primal desires for sweetness.
And visual stimulation.
Yeah, we view the produce aisle as a sanctuary of nature, when in reality it is a gallery of human artifice.
It is a testament to our ancestors deciding they preferred a vegetable that looked like a sunset and tasted closer to candy.
And that illusion holds perfectly steady, century after century, until one rogue, vibrantly yellow carrot somehow slips through the supply chain in the year 2026.
Just sitting there on the shelf.
It lands on a shelf, causes a 404 cognitive error in Eng's brain, and sparks this entire cascade of realizations. It really validates the importance of not walking past the glitches in our daily lives.
Right, because Aang could have easily dismissed the visual anomaly.
Totally. They could have assumed the yellow carrot was unripe or bruised or just, weird. They could have grabbed the orange bundle and gone home.
But they didn't. They allowed the cognitive friction to exist. They
Yeah.
took a photograph, they consulted an AI to analyze the biological data, they tracked the history back to the Dutch Golden Age.
That behavior is the defining characteristic of a genuine learner. It is the refusal to accept the baseline predictability of the designed world without understanding the mechanisms that built it.
Exactly.
So let's briefly trace the incredible arc of this investigation. We started in the most mundane environment imaginable, a grocery store produce aisle, with the sighting of a vibrant yellow carrot.
And that single visual anomaly broke the mental heuristic.
Right, forcing us to realize that the ubiquitous orange carrot is not natural, but a highly engineered 17th century Dutch invention.
Then, by deploying AI to parse the historical crop data, we uncovered the biological mechanism behind the orange carrot's total global dominance.
It was selectively bred to be the sweeter, juicier pop star of the vegetable kingdom. And finally, we arrived at Aang's profound realization that we eat with our eyes first,
We visually taste our food.
allowing our neurological anticipation of sugar to ruthlessly shape the agricultural diversity of the world around us.
It is a masterclass in extracting a profound macro-level philosophy from a micro-level observation.
It really is.
It proves that major paradigm shifts don't only happen in laboratories or through, dense academic treatises. They happen in the vegetable aisle, provided you're actually paying attention.
And this is exactly why we do these deep dives. For you, because being truly well-informed isn't just about absorbing the news cycle or reading the latest heavy research paper.
No, it's about maintaining an intense, almost relentless curiosity about the invisible scaffolding of your everyday life.
It's about keeping your eyes open when you are on autopilot
Yeah.
and being willing to stop and ask, why exactly is this the default?
Because the default is rarely an accident. It is almost always a design choice that we have simply grown accustomed to.
So we're going to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over today as you go about your routine.
Lay it on them.
If the classic bright orange carrot, the ultimate universally accepted symbol of a natural, healthy, earth-grain vegetable, is actually just a highly successful, centuries-old design project driven entirely by our primal preference for bright colors and a hit of sugar.
Yeah.
What other natural, everyday items in your life are actually human-engineered illusions that you've simply accepted as the default?
Something to think about.
Next time you're moving through a perfectly predictable, cleanly categorized environment, remember that the history of the objects around you might be heavily rewritten. Keep looking for the glitches,